She was Hollywood's golden girl, the brown-eyed beauty who stole hearts in Miracle on 34th Street and dazzled audiences as she blossomed from child star to Oscar-nominated actress. Natalie Wood didn't just grow up on screen, she lit it up. By her teens, she was already earning Academy Award nods and sharing the screen with the biggest stars of her era. But then, just as her fame seemed unstoppable, she vanished under the most chilling circumstances. What followed was decades of silence, whispers, and wild speculation. Was it an accident, foul play, or something even darker? For years, the world was left grasping for answers, until now, because, at long last, the haunting mystery behind Natalie Wood's tragic death has finally been cracked open. And what's been uncovered is more shocking than anyone ever imagined. Natalie Wood's rise as a child actor. Before she became Natalie Wood, the Hollywood star, she was born Natalia Nikolaevna Zakharenko on July 20, 1938, in San Francisco. Her parents, Maria Zudilova and Nicholas Zakharenko, had both escaped difficult lives in Russia and Ukraine. Natalie's background was filled with stories of war, survival, and starting over in a new country. Her mother, Maria, was born in the city of Barnaul. Her family once owned soap and candle factories, along with a large estate. But when the Russian Civil War broke out, everything changed. Maria's family ran for safety, ending up in Harbin, China, where they lived as refugees. Later, they moved to the United States by ship in 1930. Maria had already been married once before to an Armenian mechanic named Alexander Tatulov. They had a daughter named Olga, born in 1928. The couple divorced in 1936. Not long after, Maria met Nicholas Zakharenko, who would become Natalie's father. Nicholas was from Ussurisk, a city in Russia. His own family had also fled during the war. His father, who worked in a chocolate factory, was killed during a fight between the Red Army and the White Russian soldiers in the city of Vladivostok. After that, Nicholas's mother took her sons to Shanghai, then later moved to Vancouver, Canada, where she remarried. In 1933, they finally made their way to the United States. Maria and Nicholas got married in February 1938, just 5 months before Natalie was born. A year later, the family changed their last name to Gurdon to help them fit in better in America. In 1942, they bought a home in Santa Rosa, California, where something unexpected happened. While a movie was being filmed in town, Natalie caught the attention of a crew member. She was just 4 years old. Not long after, she had a small part in the movie The Moon is Down, released in 1943. Then she appeared in a short scene in Happy Land the same year. Even though these were very small roles, one of the directors, Irving Pichel, saw something special in her. He kept in touch with her family for the next 2 years. When he found a role perfect for Natalie, he called her mother right away. Maria, who was eager to make her daughter a star, packed up the entire family and moved them to Los Angeles. Natalie's father didn't agree with the idea, but Maria's dream for her daughter was stronger. At the age of 7, Natalie landed a big role in the film Tomorrow is Forever in 1946. She played a young German orphan living in the aftermath of World War II, starring alongside Orson Welles and Claudette Colbert. When Natalie couldn't cry on cue during one scene, her mother did something shocking. She tore a butterfly to pieces right in front of her to make her cry. The scene worked. Natalie's performance left a strong impression on everyone. Orson Welles later said that Natalie was so good, she was terrifying, and added that she didn't act from the script, she acted from the heart. After that, she acted in another film directed by Pichel, The Bride Wore Boots, and later went on to star in The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, 1947, where she played Jean Tierney's daughter. By the time Natalie was just 9 years old, it was clear she wasn't just another child actor. She was already something much bigger. Natalie Wood's performance in Miracle on 34th Street. Natalie Wood's most famous film as a child star was Miracle on 34th Street, a timeless holiday classic that made her a household name. starring alongside Maureen O'Hara and John Payne, Wood played a skeptical little girl who eventually comes to believe that a kind-hearted department store Santa, played by Edmund Gwenn, might actually be the real thing. Her performance captured hearts across America, and the film quickly became a Christmas staple. Natalie's role was so beloved that Macy's invited her to appear in their iconic Thanksgiving Day parade. Following the success of Miracle, Wood was cast in a string of family-friendly films where she often played the daughter. She starred in Driftwood, Scudda Hoo, Scudda Hay, Chicken, Every Sunday, The Green Promise, and several others. She played Fred MacMurray's daughter in Father Was a Fullback, again alongside Maureen O'Hara, and took on the role of Margaret Sullivan's daughter in No Sad Songs for Me. These roles helped cement her image as one of the most reliable and charming young talents in Hollywood. Since Natalie was still a minor, most of her schooling happened right on the studio lots. California law required child actors to spend at least 3 hours a day in class, no matter how packed their filming schedules were. According to biographer Warren Harris, Natalie was a straight-A student and particularly gifted in math, something that set her apart from many of her peers. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz, who worked with her on The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, once said, "In all my years in the business, I never met a smarter moppet." Natalie later admitted she always felt a little guilty knowing the crew had to wait while she did her lessons. "As soon as the teacher let us go, I ran to the set as fast as I could," she said. Behind the scenes, her mother remained a strong influence. Even after Natalie signed with professional agents, Maria continued to coach and control many parts of her daughter's career. Still, the spotlight adored her. By the age of 9, Parents magazine named Natalie the most exciting juvenile motion picture star of the year, carving a path as a teen. In the 1953-54 television season, a teenage Natalie Wood took on a charming role as Anne Morrison, the daughter in The Pride of the Family, a wholesome ABC sitcom. It marked her early steps into more mature roles. She soon began appearing on anthology shows like the Pepsi-Cola Playhouse, Public Defender, Mayor of the Town, Four-Star Playhouse, the Ford Television Theater, and General Electric Theater. One episode, Carnival, stood out to Natalie as one of the best performances of her career. While continuing her television work, Wood also picked up roles in feature films like The Silver Chalice and One Desire. But at just 16, she made a daring leap from child star to full-fledged ingenue, with her performance in Rebel Without a Cause, opposite James Dean and Sal Mineo. The film, directed by Nicholas Ray, captured the angst of 1950s youth and became an instant classic. Natalie's performance earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, her first major industry nod. What made Rebel even more meaningful was that it was the first role Natalie truly wanted to do. She later revealed that, until then, she only took roles chosen by her parents. Interestingly, her parents had opposed her decision to take on the part, which made it even more empowering. Wood continued to appear in TV shows and films like The Searchers and A Cry in the Night. After graduating from Van Nuys High School in 1956, she signed a contract with Warner Brothers, who cast her in teen-driven projects like The Burning Hills and The Girl He Left Behind, both with Tab Hunter. The studio tried pairing her with leading men like Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. and Frank Sinatra in films like Bombers B-52 and Kings Go Forth. Then came Marjorie Morningstar, a breakthrough role that showed a more mature, introspective Natalie. Critics began to notice her shift from childlike innocence to emotional complexity. Her performance in Gypsy won praise, and Love with the Proper Stranger earned her a third Oscar nomination at just 25. Natalie had officially come of age in Hollywood, but behind the scenes, the pressure was mounting. Natalie Wood's personal struggles. After the disappointing reception of Penelope in 1966, Natalie Wood stepped away from Hollywood, beginning a 3-year break from acting. Though she had been announced for the film I Never Promised You a Rose Garden, she ultimately didn't appear in it. Later, Wood revealed that filming Penelope had taken a serious toll on her. "I broke out in hives and suffered anguish that was very real pain every day we shot," she recalled. Arthur Hiller, the director, kept saying, "Natalie, I think you're resisting this film," while I rolled around the floor in agony. By that point, Natalie was suffering deeply, both emotionally and physically. In an effort to take back control of her life, she made some drastic decisions. She sought professional therapy and paid Warner Brothers $175,000 to cancel her studio contract. Determined to rebuild from the ground up, she also fired her entire support team: agents, managers, publicists, accountants, and even her attorneys. For the first time in her career, Natalie was choosing herself. During this period of reflection and healing, Natalie met Richard Gregson, a British writer and agent. Their relationship blossomed quickly, and the two married in 1969. Around this time, she also began to ease her way back into the film industry. Her comeback arrived with a bold and timely project. In 1969, Wood co-starred alongside Diane Cannon, Robert Culp, and Elliot Gould in Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, a witty and provocative comedy about sexual liberation, changing norms, and the complexity of modern relationships. According to film historian John C. Tibbets, it was the first time humor was used to soften the emotional dilemmas often present in Natalie's adult roles. The film resonated with audiences and critics alike, quickly becoming a cultural touchstone. It became director Paul Mazursky's breakout success and was the sixth highest-grossing movie of the year, breaking records during its first week. Despite the success of Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, Natalie didn't immediately build on its momentum. In 1970, she became pregnant with her first child, Natasha Gregson, and chose to step into semi-retirement. Over the rest of her life, she appeared in only 4 more theatrical films. Among them was a brief cameo as herself in The Candidate, reuniting her with longtime friend and co-star Robert Redford. By the early 1980s, Natalie was ready to make a more significant return to acting. She signed on to star in Brainstorm, a high-budget science fiction film directed by Douglas Trumbull and co-starring Christopher Walken. But tragically, Natalie would not live to see its release. She died while the film was still in production. At the time of her death, Natalie had already completed most of her key scenes. To finish the film, Trumbull reworked parts of the script, cutting her from several scenes. A stand-in and sound-alikes were used for the remaining footage, and Natalie's younger sister, Lana Wood, stepped in to help complete a few of the unfinished moments. Brainstorm was eventually released posthumously on September 30th, 1983, with a touching dedication to Natalie in the closing credits. Natalie Wood's personal life. Natalie Wood's love life was as captivating to the public as her on-screen performances, especially her tumultuous headline-making marriages to actor Robert Wagner. Their relationship became one of Hollywood's most talked-about romances, full of passion, breakups, reunions, and even scandal. Wood first laid eyes on Wagner when she was just 10 years old, telling her mother that she was going to marry him one day. That prophecy came true on December 28, 1957, when the two stars tied the knot in an intimate ceremony in Scottsdale, Arizona. Natalie was just 19, and Wagner, a rising actor at the time, was 27. To the outside world, they looked like the perfect couple, beautiful, successful, and deeply in love. But behind closed doors, cracks soon began to show. According to several accounts, including those referenced in Suzanne Finstad's biography, Natasha, Natalie discovered Wagner in an alleged affair, not with another woman, but with another man. Although this claim has been strongly denied by Wagner, it has persisted in Hollywood lore and was supported by some of Wood's close confidants. The betrayal devastated Natalie. On June 20, 1961, the couple announced a trial separation, and by April 27, 1962, they were officially divorced. Following the divorce, Wood entered her glamorous and independent phase, dating several high-profile men. Her romances included Warren Beatty, her co-star in Splendor in the Grass, as well as Michael Caine and David Niven Jr. In 1965, she even became engaged to Ladislav Blatnik, a wealthy Venezuelan shoe manufacturer. But the engagement ended before they made it to the altar. In 1966, Natalie began dating Richard Gregson, a British producer and screenwriter. Their relationship was more grounded, and after nearly 3 years together, they married on May 30th, 1969. A year later, they welcomed their daughter Natasha, born September 29, 1970. Despite the joy of motherhood, their marriage began to unravel soon after. Rumors swirled about Gregson's infidelity, and Natalie filed for divorce on August 4, 1971. It was finalized on April 12, 1972. Natalie's heart, however, wasn't done with Wagner. In a twist that fascinated Hollywood, the former couple rekindled their romance in January 1972, just months after her split from Gregson. According to friends, their reunion was electric, like picking up where they'd left off, only wiser and more appreciative of one another. They remarried on July 16, 1972, aboard a yacht called the Ramblin' Rose, anchored off Paradise Cove in Malibu. This time, it felt more private, more sacred. Their second daughter, Courtney Wagner, was born March 9, 1974. Yet even this renewed love story wasn't without controversy. In 2015, former FBI agent Donald G. Wilson publicly claimed that he and Natalie had engaged in a secret 4-year affair that began in 1973 while she was pregnant with Courtney. Wilson said their relationship lasted until 1977 and involved deep emotional intimacy. His story had been whispered about for years, but only gained traction when he confirmed it directly to several media outlets, including People and the cable network Reels. In a 2016 documentary, Wilson appeared on camera, stating that Natalie had felt unfulfilled in her marriage and had turned to him for comfort and affection. While Wagner never commented directly on Wilson's claims, those close to the family dismissed them as sensational. Still, the allegations added another complicated layer to Natalie's already dramatic life. Despite everything, the betrayals, the separations, the rumors, Natalie and Wagner remained committed to their blended family until her tragic death in 1981. Wagner would go on to raise both Natasha and Courtney, and to this day, he speaks of Natalie with love and reverence. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was unforgettable. It was a love story full of twists and shadows, the kind Hollywood can't help but tell again and again. Theirs wasn't a perfect love story, but it was real, raw, and unforgettable. The kind of story that Hollywood returns to again and again, unable to let go. The secret Natalie Woods kept buried. After the fairy tale marriage between Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner ended in 1961, and with Natalie quietly taking the blame for the divorce, it seemed like the worst was behind her. But years after her tragic death, a much darker chapter of her life would emerge, one that had remained hidden for decades. For years, whispers swirled through Hollywood, suggesting that Natalie had been sexually assaulted as a teenager by a much older, very powerful actor. The rumor, long unconfirmed, remained one of the industry's ugliest secrets. But in a memoir released decades later, Natalie's younger sister finally named the man behind the alleged assault: Kirk Douglas. Lana Wood described the night vividly in her book, Little Sister. She remembered how Natalie looked especially beautiful when their mother, Maria Zakharenko, dropped her off at the entrance of the Chateau Marmont. Their mother had arranged the meeting, believing that with Kirk's support, Natalie's career could skyrocket. All it would take, Maria believed, was a nod of approval from one of Hollywood's most admired and handsome leading men. Hours passed. When Natalie finally returned to the car, Lana, then just a child, was jolted awake by the sound of the door slamming. Natalie looked disturbed. Her hair and clothes were messy, and her expression was haunted. She and their mother began whispering urgently, but Lana, too young to understand, was left in the dark. She only knew something bad had happened. Years later, When both sisters were adults, Natalie opened up about that night. She told Lana she had been taken up to Kirk Douglas's suite. She didn't give details, only that he had hurt her. The memory, Lana recalled, was painful and difficult for Natalie to share. It felt like she had been outside of her own body, afraid, confused, and violated. But she never spoke of it publicly. Their mother had insisted they stay silent. Revealing the truth, she warned, would destroy Natalie's rising career. Her advice was to simply suck it up. Lana remembered making a promise to her sister never to talk about it. But after Douglas died in 2020 at the age of 103, Natalie's name trended on social media alongside his, as people speculated about the long-standing rumors. For Lana, the time had come to tell the full truth. With no one left to protect, she believed Natalie would understand why the silence had to be broken. Kirk Douglas had been in his late 30s at the time of the alleged assault. Known for films like Spartacus, The Bad and the Beautiful, and Gunfight at the OK Corral, he was a Hollywood heavyweight. More than an actor, he was a producer and political figure. One of the first stars to start his own production company, and a key figure in ending the anti-communist blacklist in the 1960s by hiring screenwriter Dalton Trumbo for Spartacus and publicly crediting him. Douglas was also recognized for his philanthropy. He and his wife Anne created the Douglas Foundation, donating millions over the years. Honors poured in during his lifetime: the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the French Legion of Honor, and an honorary Academy Award for being a creative and moral force in the industry. But behind the accolades, stories of his womanizing ways were well known. Before the Me Too movement even began, those who knew him privately often hinted at his behavior. One friend, actress Nayla Adams, once remarked jokingly that sitting beside him always meant his hand would eventually creep up someone's leg. In his 1988 memoir, The Ragman's Son, Douglas briefly mentioned Natalie. He recalled driving home late one night and stopping at a red light. A young girl jumped out of the car in front of him and asked him to sign her suede jacket. A woman followed, introducing the girl as her daughter, Natalie Wood. She was in the film business too. That was the first time he met her, according to the book. He claimed to have seen her many times afterward, right up until her cruel accident. But Lana's account of what happened between Natalie and Douglas at the Chateau Marmont told a very different story. One Natalie carried in silence for the rest of her life was a secret so painful, so tightly guarded, that even decades later, the truth still stung. Yet as haunting as that memory was, it wasn't the only mystery surrounding Natalie's life. In fact, the biggest unanswered question, the one that has continued to raise brows through Hollywood for over 40 years, was how Natalie Wood really died. The truth behind Natalie Wood's death. On the morning of November 29, 1981, Hollywood woke up to a shocking tragedy. Natalie Wood, the beloved star of Rebel Without a Cause and West Side Story, was dead at just 43 years old. Her body was found floating in the Pacific Ocean, 1 mile away from her husband, Robert Wagner's 58-foot yacht, Splendor, near Santa Catalina Island. The cause of her death? Drowning. But from the very beginning, the story never sat quite right. Natalie had been spending the weekend aboard the yacht with Robert Wagner, her co-star Christopher Walken, and the boat's captain, Dennis Davern. The group had been drinking heavily that night, and tensions were rising, particularly between Wagner and Walken. The two reportedly got into a heated argument, allegedly sparked by Wagner's jealousy over what he believed was Wood's flirtation with her co-star. At some point, during the night of November 28th, Natalie vanished. Her body was discovered early the next morning, dressed in a flannel nightgown, socks, and a down jacket. Nearby, an inflatable dinghy, the Valiant, was found beached, but no one could determine exactly how or why she left the yacht in the first place. Wagner later said that Natalie was not in bed when he turned in for the night, and that he assumed she had gone off on her own. The autopsy report only added to the confusion. While the official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning and hypothermia, there were visible injuries that couldn't be easily explained. Bruises on her arms and legs, an abrasion on her left cheek, and a scratch on her neck. The medical examiner, Thomas Noguchi, concluded that Natalie likely slipped and fell into the water while attempting to board the dinghy, possibly intoxicated. Her blood alcohol level was 0.14, and there were traces of a motion sickness pill and a painkiller in her system, both of which amplify the effects of alcohol. But the theory didn't sit well with everyone, especially her sister, Lana Wood. Lana publicly stated that Natalie had a lifelong fear of deep water and couldn't swim. She would never have gotten into that dinghy alone, she insisted. 2 witnesses on a nearby boat claimed to have heard a woman screaming for help in the middle of the night. At Natalie's funeral, the grief was overwhelming. Held at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery, it was attended by a who's who of Hollywood royalty. Among the mourners were Frank Sinatra, Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson, Gregory Peck, Gene Kelly, and even Laurence Olivier, who flew in from London just to pay his respects. But even as the world mourned, questions lingered. For decades, Wagner maintained that Natalie's death was an accident. But in 2011, the case was officially reopened. Captain Dennis Davern, who had remained mostly silent for 30 years, changed his story. In interviews with NBC and CBS News, he claimed he had lied to police during the original investigation. According to Davern, Wagner and Wood had a terrible fight that night. Wagner had been furious over Natalie's closeness to Walken, and the tension escalated. Davern said Wagner smashed a wine bottle in rage, and later told him, as Natalie disappeared overboard, not to turn on the searchlights or alert the Coast Guard. Worse still, Davern alleged that Wagner may have shoved her and uttered chilling words as she struggled in the water. "Leave her there. Teach her a lesson." He described Wagner as pacing, drinking, and too enraged to act. By the time they decided to go after her, he said, the screams had already stopped. Walken, for his part, hired an attorney and cooperated fully with the renewed investigation. He was never considered a suspect, but his silence fueled speculation. In interviews, he later expressed sorrow and confusion, but offered no further insight into that fateful night. In 2012, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office amended Natalie Wood's death certificate. The cause of death was changed from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. The coroner noted that it was not clearly established how she entered the water, and that some of the bruises may have occurred before she drowned. A 10-page addendum to her autopsy was released in 2013, shedding further doubt on the original explanation. The new findings indicated that the bruises on her arms, legs, and face were inconsistent with a simple fall from a boat. Forensic pathologist Michael Hunter added that Natalie's use of Synthroid, a thyroid medication, could have made her more susceptible to bruising, but the number and placement of the injuries still raised red flags. Adding to the suspicion, a doctor who had worked as an intern under Noguchi in 1981 later claimed that the bruising he observed was severe and consistent with someone being forcibly thrown into the water. In a major development, Robert Wagner was officially named a person of interest in February 2018. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department revealed that Wagner was the last person seen with Natalie before she disappeared, and that his version of events did not add up. Investigators also pointed to her fresh bruising on her right forearm, left wrist, and right knee, as well as a superficial scrape on her forehead and a scratch on her neck. These injuries, they said, suggested she may have been assaulted before entering the water, though no criminal charges have ever been filed, and Wagner has continued to deny any involvement. The mystery of Natalie Wood's death remains one of Hollywood's most haunting unsolved cases. For many, it's not just the loss of a star that still stings, it's the nagging feeling that the truth was never fully told. What do you think really happened to Natalie Wood? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.